Yes, after because we will do the first, and then we will get.
Apart from presenters, yes, I would also leave.
Okay. After this.
I may still left for some time, but
okay, come and please shoot a few pieces. Okay.
Oh, yeah. We were there. There, yeah.
Everyone, please kindly be seated and the session will be going to start in 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Everyone, please be seated. The session is going to start.
Good afternoon all. I on behalf of Birla Institute of Management Technology and University of Hull welcome you to the plenary session on emerging market and logistics business. Let me introduce you to the chair, Professor Prem Chetri, RMIT University, Australia. Professor Prem is a doctorate from RMIT University and a professor of logistics and geographic systems. He is also a program manager for urban sustainability within the Global Cities Institute. He is a geographer with a strong interest in urban infrastructure, retail, and even logistics, transport planning, tourism analysis, and management of geographic information. Over the last few years, he has also developed an international reputation for his research in spatially integrated social and economic resource analysis and modeling. Professor Prem holds a number of degrees that include a master's degree in regional development and planning from Jawaharlal Nehru University and a master's degree from Delhi School of Economics, Delhi University, the two most prestigious institutions in India. We welcome you, sir. Let me also welcome the speaker, Professor Kulwant Pawar. Professor Pawar is a doctorate from Icsclm and a professor of operations management. Sir has research interest in managing new product development and interface between product development and supply chain. Besides managing design terms in virtual enterprises, Sir also shares interest in knowledge transfer and share in the extended enterprise and comparative analysis of supply chain networks and configuration in Europe, China, and India. Welcome you, sir. Now I request the chair to please take up the proceedings. Thank you.
Good afternoon. This is going to be an exciting session, particularly after the heavy lunch, heavy carry, I guess. Hopefully, if you want to sleep at the back, if you're sleeping, you can take it backstage if you want. It is my great pleasure to introduce Professor Kulwant Pawar. He has been a great mentor to many of us overseas, particularly in the UK. He's a role model that we all aspire to pursue in our career. He has created a vast amount of synergies to which a lot of us from India in trade in the UK in this area of logistics budget management. Today he's going to talk about responsible innovation. The topic itself is very challenging and exciting in a number of ways. Integrating innovation and attaching it to responsibility is not an easy task. We're going to talk about potential challenges and the implications of supply chain as a very, very different perspective of integration of responsibility and innovation. So I'm going to request Professor Pawar to introduce himself, and I might please see them relax. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think it's a pleasure to be here. I think I was initially I didn't intend to come until I was my aunt Christy, my colleague and dear friend Professor Ravani. He said you must come. But okay, I was only here a couple of weeks ago. We went back to UK a couple of weeks ago. And then with a number of other engagements, but okay, I'll be come just for a couple of days. But it's a pleasure to be here. And just to think of my background, I'm an engineer by profession. I trained as an engineer. I've worked as an engineer in the industry for 10 years or so at different levels in large multinational organizations within the UK. And then for the last 20 odd years or so, I've been working at Nottingham University, initially in manufacturing engineering, until we were kicked out as too soft into a business school. And so for the last 7 or 8 years, I've been in a business school at Nottingham. And as for Glenn said, my background is very much on design, engineering, I'm going to talk about the responsible innovation. And really, so it comes from my PhD, initially when I go back, last century in fact, it was on design linked to manufacturing. And how do you integrate manufacturing at the design stage? And I feel we face some challenge now in terms of how do we integrate supply chain at the design stage. And so this is basically what our focus is going to be. I've done a lot of work across different countries, different places, and mainly a lot of work in Europe with a whole host of different sectors, different organizations, funded by the European Commission, and also in India as well, with a number of projects with Professor Lalwani and a few other institutions in India. But lately, I just finished a study here with IIM Bangalore and IIT Kanpur, looking at the pharmaceutical industry and some of the challenges in supply chain there. And some of the thoughts which I think I'm going to present here, they came from my colleague, Fiona Lettis. She's again a good old friend for almost 20 odd years, and Helen Rogers, and who's again been at Nottingham. Now she's currently working in Germany. Again, a good friend, good colleague. So these thoughts and the work which I'm presenting here is shared, which we have developed over the last year or so. So that's the perspective I'm going to take. And I put the term responsible innovation, and I think we all know about innovation. It's emerging as a pretty big area of interest to everyone. Everyone talks about innovation. And when I think back, I think when I was doing my PhD, we talk about innovation, but very much on product oriented. When you're designing something, how can we have a creative product, design something which is novel, innovative And then understand, I think we're looking at sort of the word responsible. And I just arrived this morning at 4 o'clock, and on the way, and I looked at this newspaper, Financial Times, on responsible banking, and which is quite unique in a sense, I think, bearing in mind what we have gone through over the last few years. And here it says, our promise to contribute positively to the society while protecting the community and environment in which financial institutions and our clients operate is simply responsible innovation. And the word responsible appears to be emerging quite strongly evident, certainly in Europe. And as I said, I've done a lot of work in Europe, and I was in Rome a couple of days ago before I came here, and we're talking about this kind of responsible innovation as a big initiative in Europe. How can we be responsible? So that's basically the theme and the background of what I'm going to talk about. That's the context I'm going to talk about, what's happening and so on, and some definitions, what we mean by responsible innovation and the approach, and again looking from a design point of view of what it really means and how do we integrate the supply chain at the design stage. This is again, I think, looking at what reflect that to what happened evolution. If you think about manufacturing, that was the main focus in industry, and then along came, so in the 70s we're looking at design and how do we link it to manufacturing. At that time, how can we sell something? We make something, how can we sell something to our customers and clients? Then I think the whole domain expanded, the word service came in. How can we do something with those research, designing, developing, manufacturing, sales, and the service. Now whatever we are doing in terms of servicing that particular sort of product or design we have. And then in the 90s, the issue was, so the word disposability came in. And then also suppliers came into the equation, into the picture as well. And then coming along from the year 2000, the customers, somehow involving customers, understanding customer needs. Whereas before, it was very much what we design something, we push it to our customers. Now it's customer engagement. And then so looking at from 2010 onwards, and we're looking at all those areas there, innovation people talk about user-centered design. User-centered design is very, very important. At the end of the day, what are we going to do? How are we going to use it? And this is the biggest challenge I feel in India, which exists. No one ever thinks about the user. We in India will think more about how can we prevent the user from doing it properly. And that appears to be the emphasis, rather than how can we engage. Whereas in Europe, still puts the user-centered. And the word responsible innovation is emerging. So-called knowledge-based economy is the ethos. And so therefore, challenge which we face, how do we become responsible innovators? Now, in a situation which is changing dramatically all the time, dynamic and changing context, which we all reside in. And this is an example. And now sort of thinking, okay, problem. And I remember, I think in the UK, there's a problem. For example, how do we raise awareness of cancer research? A problem particularly, it was raised by Cancer Research Organization. We want to raise public awareness. In this case, in the Cancer Research Organization went to Marks and Spencer UK. You're a retailer. Can you help us to raise awareness, particularly for women with breast cancer? And Marks and Spencer said, oh yes, of course. We are social doers. We want to do something. And then they saw an opportunity where they could develop products which they could bring to the market. So not only they were socially conscious, then they could also realize the business opportunity. So this is what the Marks and Spencer did. And I done the work I mentioned in pharmaceutical science. And I remember, I think about 2 years ago, we got whole sourcing directors of large organizations, Eli Lilly, Pfizer, Novartis, AstraZeneca, we had a workshop in Mumbai about how can they source ethically. And after what they made, they came an idea. Let's have it, rather each organization going to the supplier, developing a supplier capability, and finding out whether they source ethically or not, or operating ethically or not. And they said, let's an independent organization who's able to certify all the suppliers. We are coming together as organization and developing something which is responsible. They assure this independent organization in a way going on intervening on our behalf and saying, how can this organization be ethical? Or training or development comes in by this organization. Michael Porter talks about so-called shared values. Shared values into fair trade. For instance, in Africa, how can the rural work? Look at, say, the coffee, the banana, all kinds of things. How can we have this win-win scenario for the people? And then it's looking at what's happened after the tsunami. And in Japan decided no longer will have nuclear industry. In Germany, they went the same road as well. And then said, how can we develop something which is not going to harm society in the future? So we are responsible innovators in what we do. But that's the kind of ethos, that's the kind of argument, I think, perspective, on where Icsclm comes from. So it comes back to really, and this is what I mentioned here, and we're saying it's a way, something we're making a positive contribution to our future society. We're doing something, not which will have a negative and harmful effect, but a positive effect on our society. And that's also the message. So therefore, we want to anticipate any potential problems which may encounter in the future. As my view is as a design. Because that's when exactly when you're making a decision, when you will influence what else will happen downstream. So therefore, anticipating and then mitigating any adverse or negative consequences or implications. So it is not about innovators only, but also looking at society as large. And that's the sort of message. And this is very from the European Commission, Icsclm view. Rather from science in society, it's a science for society and with society. And that's kind of a perspective which one needs to learn. And rather than the best science for the world rather than the best science in the world. So instead what we're doing is for the good of humankind. And in a way then comes on the last bullet point looking at that, so that we're doing something in a transparent manner. These days, tools, techniques are available which help us to do this, so that we're doing something like that. At the same time, we are embedding systems which are long-lasting in a positive way. And then I think, what does it encompass? What does it encompass? It encompasses basically policies. It's not something we at the supply chain and we're going to improve. In my view, it is something at the beginning, but the government policies, company policies, strategic level, and you are looking at those. And then the institutions coming in, and then, or even there are scientists, research, academics, society saying, how can we improve? Same time. And I mentioned, I think the issue with it, certainly from my point of view, is always user perspective. The user's perspective very often is forgotten. It's just like, I think, if you walk on a footpath, how do we take into consideration designing a footpath, which right in the middle doesn't have a telephone pulse in there, or a sign saying go in that direction, that immediately blocks somebody with a wheelchair going past or going along the footpath. Those kinds of, so change the lens, the way we look at it, not looking only from the designer's point of view, but from the user's point of view. And this is where the question of shared value, the so-called user involvement, co-creation, all those kind of approaches are coming into there. So then I think in that all these conditions about financial ICT instruments coming in, and then policy issue coming in, and the community as innovators. In Europe at the moment we were talking about so-called living labs. Living labs are basically trying to get communities involved in the design process. So you're designing for the community, you're designing for the society, rather than doing it other way around. So, and our argument is, being an engineer, being some kind of design background, that you've got to put in some kind of these principles and triggers at the design stage. And then you can, and be sort of in my view, a responsible innovator. Example. And when you think of an example, we all seen some of this. We talk about 3D printing, wonderful technology. We can print at home. What we do? This is somebody, this technology developed 3D printing, and somebody developed a gun, plastic gun, which will kill us as human society. Is that responsible? Somebody obviously to develop something, design a technology for the good of mankind, but then somebody is going to use it irresponsibly. So there are those kind of challenges, which one faces. I think that this was in the US, and similar over in the US. The US have done this as well. Drones. We hear a lot about drones, and which is happening again, killing people, and that's what it's like. On the other hand, there's some positive. So not all negative. The US is over now, they're using drones everywhere around the world, and I think basically whatever damage they're causing people and the other assets and so on. But that positive, and I'm sure some of you may have seen this, Amazon tests drones, cut out supply chain. Only 2 or 3 days ago, I think there was on the news, and I think I couldn't quite get the link at the bottom to work, and I just took this done a couple of days ago, and right in the middle there, if you sort of see there, this for them, it says 30 minutes delivery time. And Amazon are testing drones, so they use the technology developed by the military, which happens with a lot of scientists anyway, because military have always more budget, they're doing leading edge research, and we are using that technology to help business community. So they're basically Amazon saying, we are using drones I think less than something like 2.5 kilogram weight. And right on the bottom there, I think this bit here is a package, and the drone is there. And I saw a little video on YouTube of this link here, and where there's basically all those conveyor belts, they're packaged into this, and then outside there the drone takes it to the domestic route, to the house where it is necessary, and that way I think in 30 minutes they have this kind of delivery services in 30 minutes. So it's a positive as well. So you're using technology to originally developed in a negative manner and a positive manner, whether the 3D printing, but in a positive manner they use the negative manner. So our approach, I think, what we're proposing is pretty simple. And this is, I'm sure, those of you are design background and the engineering, you've got all these different stages which one goes through. I will not go through with all the stages going through this. You have an idea generation, you have all these kinds of scoping, and then going through development stage, validation, until final product, and then go through customer consumer. And the point we want to make, the point I would like to advocate, is the use of this, looking at each stage, engaging with stakeholders, including supply chain. And this is going back to my PhD, at that time to say, look at design, how do we engage manufacturing? Now we moved on, how do we engage supply chain experts at the design stage, at the idea stage, early as possible, and then using all the approaches, whether surveys, crowdsourcing, all that from there, and people are doing it, I think even Procter & Gamble, and they obviously that they're sourcing, like a lot of pharmaceutical companies, they're sourcing outside, they're relying on people from outside, so getting them to use those. And then in a way, you're getting users to generate ideas. As I mentioned, a living lab is user, and that's what the commission proposing. How do you make user-centered design and user-centered sort of products and futures? Same, I think, kind of next stage, again, we're looking at the assessment, the scoping approach which you carry on, going through there, and then I think looking at the sort of innovation, and then I think then making it responsible in innovation in your product, and making sure that those features are included in there. And at the same time, any sort of unintended consequences which they should be there, identifying those early on, and then trying to exclude those where possible, or at least bring it to the attention of what impact it will have. And then this slide is talking about congested slide, again going through there, you normally go to the feasibility stage there, and then looking at this is the kind of thing which pharmaceutical companies are interested in. They don't want any kind of irresponsible behavior by the suppliers. Suppliers, they want to make sure they're sourcing something ethically. Child labor, safe health and safety, and all kind of regulatory violations doesn't exist. And then I think making these, and more so, we are looking at the system and product service system as a whole. And rather than we're looking at how can we design a product, at the same time servitization comes in there, and also I would argue how to organize for delivery as well. And that comes in there, and I think we've done some work in there. And more governments, in fact, are now insisting the take back. When you design something, you are responsible for making sure at the end of life you are bringing it back to you from the energy point of view and sustainability. Then developmental stage comes in there, sourcing raw material appropriately, and always say I mentioned the pharma sector already coming in, and even this kind of issue that IPL use East Europe prison workers. Apple in China use child labor, and we heard recently 500 unsafe factories in Bangladesh, and that huge negative impact. So that we are at the design stage making these kind of impacts and making sure that. And then I think suppliers are respecting the environment, and so therefore looking at the whole supply chain, which is not insignificant, and but paying attention to these factors early on as possible. And this carries on, I think, the next phase there, sustainable testing and validation, all the time making sure that we're not going in there, I think, we're not develop these, but we're complying to the standards and requirements which we have to live with. Launch stage carries on, again, buying organizations supporting good causes, and I think these kind of organizations are becoming more ethical because the image is being tarnished. In the West, they're saying, yes, we mustn't let the image be tarnished, and making sure we're doing something appropriate. In my view, the biggest challenge lies in the stages. And the way I think we would like to look at it, the whole cycle develops this way. You are developing the ideas, you're getting more and more firm, and getting them in different stages there, and all the validation comes in there, the launch comes in there, and then goes to customer. More or less, the product is basically getting bigger and bigger, or more firm, more sort of desperate in what we're doing. And therefore, in terms of influence you can make to any kind of changes you wish to have, will get less and less. And the impact of decisions you're making, it gets higher and higher and higher as you're going along this way. So, in the way I would look at it, how can you reduce any kind of negative impact in the early phases of the design process? And that's the message which I would like people to take away from this. So, in my view, the challenges are not simple. The challenges are quite huge. I haven't got the answers. I'm just proposing some of the questions, some issues which we need to address, we need to look at in future. And CSR is becoming a big on the agenda per se, everywhere. In our curriculum, for example, we're not even, we have MBA in CSR, which we teach. And there I think there's also a need for some empirical work on this. How ready are we to be responsible innovators in the future? And then looking at the developing frameworks and the so-called capability maturity type of model assessment, how are the different levels of assessment which we need to have, and then what metrics? Who measures? Is it a government? Is it society? Is it a company? Who's measuring? What metrics do we need? What frameworks do we need? So I believe the challenges in that area as well. And then again, toolkit to implement them in practice. When we will put it in practice, people will use it. And how do we go about doing it? Implementation will be a challenge. People like me can say, yeah, wonderful, do this. At the end of this, somebody's going to do it. And though that in itself, it is a quite a tough challenge. Just to summarize, in my view, I think responsible innovation is beyond university, the high technology R&D, to all eventually apply to everyone, all of us, to all industries, and to society. And we got to be proactive in saying this. Then I think there's linking all this extend CSR to the development, writing processes and practice. And then techniques of this whole and looking at MPD process, not only decades of refining over time. As I said, people have tried to look at it from different points of view. And then looking at some kind of interest movement, as I think to a certain extent created in Europe, and at the same time we've got to consider all these issues about planet, people, profit, perspective. As I mentioned, even the banks are now thinking, okay, we've got to be more responsible in terms of what we do, how we do things. So there are a lot of challenges. And just as I said, more thought-provoking. That I got no answer, I've got answers. I'm just presenting some of the ideas, some of the issues one needs to address, in my view, in future. That's what I'm going to say, but before I end, the commercial. The commercial, I think Ray mentioned that earlier on, I'm involved in different events. This is something, which Prem is part of this, Professor Lloyd is part of this, a conference I've been organizing for a long, long time, and we are calling it Designing Responsible Innovative Global Supply Chain. And that's the theme of the conference. It's a conference which is it's in the 90s. It's been held since 1993, and first one, Nottingham 1993. I host the first one, and this year in beautiful city of Ho Chi Minh. And I thoroughly recommend it. And you will be most welcome to come along. It's organized by Nottingham and MIT, even though they're Australians, but they have a campus in Ho Chi Minh. It has RMIT campus. Deadline 28th of January, and I think 29% full papers. I got about 50 of these flyers with me, and I will leave them here and to distribute them for people to look through, and I would love to see you there. And the website is also mentioned as well. Just one other small commercial. It's an opportunity for commercial. My colleague, Christoph Bradiotis, has been pretty active in terms of looking at comparing supply chains with supply networks. And at this conference, we have been carrying out a workshop. We had a workshop in Berlin a couple of years ago. As a part of this, I think, ongoing research, Christoph had this questionnaire, 2 sides to it, and he would love if he could complete it. He's got 100 of these there. He will circulate this to everyone, and if you could complete it, that would be great. It's part of the ongoing research which we are doing, and it helps us to understand what is going on, and then feed it back to everyone and share it with everyone. That's all I'm going to say, so thank you very much.
I would like to thank you, Professor Pawar, for very insightful and thought-provoking presentation today. We've got a few minutes for a couple of questions, and if I would appreciate if you can keep it short and quick, please. So, any question for Professor Pawar?
When you're talking about responsible innovation, if you look at financial services,
Professor Pawar, I think your presentation was very thoughtful, very insightful. But my question is, what about those economies which are now moving towards services? And let's take the example of London, the example of Mumbai, which are both big financial services center. What challenges do you think firms would face when they're trying to integrate financial services, the financial services supply chain? Do you think the processes would be very different as compared to traditional new product development? So, for example, people often say that derivatives are the reason for the whole financial crisis. So, I think it's definitely applicable, but I would appreciate the thoughts, on financial services supply chains and responsible innovation.
Thank you. I'm not an expert on the financial services side, but I've done some work in service sector. And I could say the process of this development, even the financial services, they have a product at the end, which is offering, whether insurance policy or some kind of mortgage loan or whatever they're offering. It's a product they're developing. And the process they go through is similar. This is the old Cooper's model, which I've taken as a standard model for new product development. And these can be adapted. We've done some work with some organizations in the UK and in service sector. And some of these models can be developed and adapted to suit specific requirements. Challenges, it's a big challenge. I think the banking crisis has changed the world, the way we do things, the way we think about society. And it's brought everybody down to their knees, more or less, in the world. So I think the governments, the regulators have been toying with different things, what regulations to impose, what not to impose. Same time, people talk about free economy rather than controlled economy. So it's a dilemma. Those kind of challenges we'll face. I think looking at one thing, regularize something, I think, or to make it a more sort of free, flowing economy.
Thank you very much.
Any discussion?
Sir, your presentation was very insightful, and when I was going through your presentation while you were talking, I was thinking about the role of culture. Because now we see MNCs into play, right? Companies, or even look at the room here itself, we have people from various nationalities. So how do you see the role of culture in RI?
Yes, I think culture is very sort of it's difficult to comprehend sometimes. Everybody is born the way they're born, the way they're brought up, and they are in a way instilling their own cultural values and the way they sort of develop in society. And sometimes we're very selfish as individuals, as human beings. We think of me, or what I'm the most important person, which on one hand is fine. On the other hand, we don't look at the wider picture. And I think cultural dimension, look at, it's very difficult to generalize. If you look around the world, for example, and whether it's Europe, US, Japan, and I think also, India, and the different dimensions to it, and trying to say, what's the role? We've got to be saying what is needed for us as individuals, whether it's a small community here in this particular room, for example, or in the city, or a country. We've got to make sure our own values and our own norms are taken account of by the so-called innovators or developers. And we've got to be, this is what I'm saying about these living labs. Living labs, the movement in Europe for the last 2 or 3 years, but primarily driven by the communities. And whether you got the Italian, you got the French, German, British, and so on, each one saying, we've got to do this. There are a number of these living labs now operating in Europe, and they have been operating. And they are making positive impact. So I think it is a very, very different question to answer, and I think in a situation like this.
Yeah, and that's why I think collaboration becomes difficult in some scenarios, right?
Collaboration is always difficult, but I think collaboration is challenging in any sense at all. But you've got to be there, you've got to collaborate, because teamwork is better than one individual person doing something.
Thank you, sir.
Look, I'm conscious of time. The next session will be starting soon, so please join me in thanking Professor Pawar once again. And
that was indeed a learning session for all of us. I thank Professor Kulwant Pawar for sharing their insights and experience on this topic. I also thank Professor Chitri for being the chair of the session. Now I request Professor Rajiv Sharma to please honor Professor Prem Chitri. request Professor K.C. Lalwani to please felicitate the Professor Kulwant for all. Thank you, sir. Now I invite Professor Icsclm and Professor K.C. Lalwani for a research.
Very good afternoon, and a brief talk we'll have with you all people again, and this is regarding because next session has to start at 3:45, so we'll take only a few minutes, and there are 2-3 announcements, and 2:45, yes. So thanks once again for the advisory meeting we had yesterday. All your thoughts, your feedback, opinions, I think well taken, well noted, and that feedback has given us again a chance, and we take it as an opportunity to again decide to have this conference next year, 2014, and we want to announce the date now, and that I think 13 of December 2014 is the date for this conference next year. And indeed this opinion has been taken from all of you, and we are thinking forward to have again the same support, same acknowledgement from all the guests, colleagues, and speakers and delegates. Second, before we should go on to the second program, for all the delegates, their certificate of participation, we'll start this just after this particular session, technical session will start at 2:45. You can receive your certificates from the registration counter, and we are opening it, and of course this is the second visit, and now I think Dr. Lalwani should share a few particular points, and this is regarding the announcement regarding the merit certificates of people who are being taken first, second, third for the this particular technical session papers.
Thank you very much, Rajiv. First of all, I would also like to take this opportunity to thank you all, in particular our delegates from overseas who have supported it so well and have put in a lot of contribution into this conference. And also participants from industry who made it quite interactive session yesterday and some discussion today. That kind of participation is so valuable for us, so thank you. And also our delegates from India, which actually gave us the insight into that. We talk about global supply chains, but so important to localize some of the ideas you have, and some of the implementation of enhancing supply chain logistics. You have to make sure that it doesn't fall on its face unless you localize things in localized context, like the question today about the cultural aspects. So thank you so much to give that you've given us so much support. Just a couple of things actually, because in our first call we did say that there will be some awards for the best paper, and we have the reviews on the papers, we have feedback forms from the session chairs, and based on those, once the last session is over, we would, the small panel, look at, and contact the people by email in terms of the best paper awards and a couple of other awards. So it would be done fairly soon. The third thing actually is about the date. We did have quite a bit of discussion yesterday and had feedback from all participants, academia and industry, and just to see the model we have used this time in industry, academia and collection. First day focused on industry and second day on academia, and also the themes and the topic areas. We have number of suggestions, very positive feedback, but number of suggestions for improvement and structuring it and making it more in terms of focused on some of the micro issues of the industry. We have taken that on board and will address those issues. Also in relation to the micro issues, we plan to have, Bimtech plans to have the focus groups, maybe every 3 months, every 4 months, where this more sector-based, more specific issue-based forum discussions will take place. So that's one thing Bimtech actually will be working on. And the feedback actually suggested also that the dates which Rajiv has announced, 12th and 13th of December for next year. So you do put in your diary. There will be a call in a couple of weeks' time, and we hope to see you all, and we hope you will bring a lot more of your colleagues with you from both academia and from industry. So thank you very much again. We have now the technical session, so it will be like 5 minutes comfort break, and then you'll have the screens coming on, and then we'll have the session set up. Make sure in these 5 minutes the speakers actually load their presentation, if they haven't done so, on the laptops in these 2 rooms. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
आपका तो नहीं पीछे वाला मेरा मैं बैग दूर रुक गया अभी बांधा तो उसमें दवाई थी बाहर H1 outside H1 what is waiting please no H1 outside yeah no How do you do that?